Hey y'all, what's good, what's poppin'? I'm so excited to come at y'all today with this video. I know it's been a while. I swear every time I pop on here, I tell y'all that I'm gonna be consistent. I'm not just gonna disappear for a month, go MIA and not post a video, but here we are.
Girl, you have done it again.
But today I'm excited to do this video because I'm doing a review on a foundation that I was really excited to try out when I saw it was going to be dropped. And it is this Fenty Beauty Pro Filt'r Soft Matte Powder Foundation. Currently wearing it on my face right now. I went ahead and applied that and some bronzer. And I have some thoughts on it. And I want to go ahead and just give a rundown on the product, do a little bit of a demo and application. And then I'm going to also do a wear test in this video. So if y'all are interested to see all that, be sure to watch to the end, stick around. Before we get into it though, I just want to say thank you to all my new and returning subscribers out there. Thank y'all so much for sticking around, for continuing to support my channel and my content and to help me grow. If you're new here and you haven't already, just be sure to go ahead and click that subscribe button and click the bell button as well so you can get a notification every time I upload a new video. And with that being said, let's get into it. So I just want to do a little quick rundown of the product description, tell you what this is, tell you what the claims are being made. So this is a buildable light to full coverage foundation. It's said to be long wear, light as air, crease resistant. It comes in 50 shades like all of their complexion products. It has a great range of undertones as well as just skin tones from fair to deep dark. So no matter what your skin tone is, Fenty's almost definitely got you covered in their foundation department. They almost certainly have something to match you. It claims to have no flashback. It has a blur filter complex to deliver the ultimate blurred finish. It claims to be sweat, humidity, and crease resistant, and it claims to be buildable, light to full coverage. It won't settle into fine lines, clog pores, or cake up. It helps to reduce the appearance of shine. And then it comes in this nice compact design. So it retails for $36, and for that you get 0.32 ounces of product. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the product right now. So when you open it up, this is what you initially see. So here is the product in the compact here, and then you get this mirror. This is just a normal mirror so you can see everything. And then what I really love is when you lift up the foundation here, you get a second compartment here. So they have this included makeup application sponge, which as you can see, I've already used to apply the foundation. And then they have a second mirror here, which is actually zoomed in so you can see details and you can really get up close and see how it looks and how you're applying it so that you can make sure you don't miss any spots. I really love the attention that went into this packaging, and it feels really solid too. It has some weight to it. I really like when a product has weight to it. It's not just flimsy. Even though the packaging is plastic, it does feel like it's nice and solid and high quality, which is really nice. Even though packaging obviously doesn't affect the performance of a product, when you are dropping some coins on it, it is nice for it to come in packaging that's a little bit more luxe, a little bit more bougie. Fenty Beauty is also 100% cruelty free. Just throwing that out there. If y'all have watched my channel for a while, you might think it's a little odd that I'm trying out a powder foundation because you know that I'm a fan of more like satiny to dewy finishes, and I pretty much always just exclusively tried liquid complexion products or creams besides like a setting powder, but I prefer creams when it comes to things like blushes or bronzers. I've always used liquid foundations and stuff like that. I do have a friend that's a really big fan of the Bare Minerals powder foundation, and she's recommended it to me, but I've just never really been interested to try it out. But I was interested to try out this foundation because I do have the Fenty Beauty Stalk'r bronzer, and that's their powder formula, and that blended out beautifully. It applies so nice to the skin, and not that I've tried so many powder bronzers, but the few that I have, a problem that I've had with many of them is that they tend to be pretty chalky, and I did not have that problem at all with the Fenty bronzer, so I was pretty confident that it was going to look good, make me look flawless, and it was going to blend out like a dream. And so far it's living up to my expectations. I'm not going to lie, it looks really good on the skin. And I should mention that I'm also using the shade 290 as my shade, just so that y'all are aware, because I know some of y'all do watch my videos and do use my videos for product recommendations because we do have a very similar skin tone. So I am using the shade 290, and that's pretty much an exact match for my skin, but I am wearing some bronzer right now, so this isn't what it looks like applied. So that's basically all I really have to say about the product itself and the packaging. Now I'm just going to go ahead and get into the application so y'all can actually see how it performs in real time and how it applies. And I'll go ahead and give y'all some of my raw thoughts as I'm applying it and how I feel about the product. Okay, so now I'm ready to go ahead and start with the application. So I have my foundation here in the shade 290. Now I'm gonna go ahead and apply it two different ways. So like I mentioned earlier, the packaging does have this sponge included for you to apply on the go. And I'm gonna go ahead and see how that applies on the side of the face just to see how the sponge performs. Really? I can't talk to the camera. On one half of my face, I'm gonna go ahead and use the sponge that's included in the packaging like I mentioned earlier, but I'm not too sure about how it's gonna perform. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it on this side of my face because I don't have really as much stuff going on over here. And then on this side of my face, I'm gonna go ahead and use a brush because that's an application method that I'm comfortable with. So if the sponge isn't really doing it for this side, hopefully I can give it some justice doing the brush on this side. So let's go ahead and start the application. So I'm taking the sponge, clean sponge. I'm gonna go ahead and just grab some product off of the top, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and gently buff it in. Okay, so the product is applying pretty decently with this. Goes on very smooth, and even though I have to kind of like brush the product on, it's not lifting the foundation I've already applied. It's very buildable. I feel like the initial coat doesn't necessarily cover everything, but it definitely does blur out the appearance of pores. I'm not mad at how it applies with the sponge. I just don't think that this would be my preferred application method. I feel like a lot of product is getting caught up in the sponge, and I'm not sure if it's going to be different with the brush. I definitely will probably be using this for applications on the go, but I'm not sure if this is going to be my preferred application method when I'm applying at home. I'm going to go ahead and kind of like pinch the corner a little bit to grab some more product and really give me some precision. I'm going to try to cover up some of these hyperpigmentation spots I have going on here and see how buildable this is. Okay, so here is the foundation applied on this half of the face. First impressions, just applying it with a sponge. It does apply very evenly to the skin. It doesn't skip or streak or anything like that. It gives me pretty decent coverage. I wouldn't say it's like completely full coverage. I do have a tiny bit of hyperpigmentation peeking through right here, but it's nothing I won't tolerate. It doesn't look bad. My pores and whatnot look completely blurred out. The side of my face looks flawless and really smooth. Even the under eyes look a little bit smoothed out. Not that I have anything crazy going on in the under eyes, but just the fine lines that I have going on under there. The powder seems to have filled those in without caking or creasing. I usually have a little bit of texture right here on my chin, just like tiny little bumps going on underneath the skin, and they look blurred out as well. And then my neck looks nice and even as well. It does a really good job of evening out the skin tone and canceling out redness. As you can see, this side looks just a lot more even tone than this side. Over here you can see some of the redness peeking through in my complexion, and even down here on the neck, I don't know if you can notice, but I shaved before I went ahead and filmed, and the side of my neck is still a little bit red and irritated looking, and this side is just nice and neutralized. So all in all, it's not like a completely 100% perfect flawless coverage foundation, but it gives you a really good coverage. It looks very skin-like in so much as it doesn't look powdery or cakey or anything like that. It does have a matte finish, which if y'all followed my channel for a while, you do know that I prefer more of like a satin to dewy finish. But I will say it's not like an uncomfortable matte. My skin doesn't feel tight or dry. It's just, there's just no shine coming off this side of my face. And hopefully throughout the day, as my oils peek through and all that starts to do its magic, hopefully it'll become a little bit more skin-like, a little bit more, not necessarily dewy, but you know, it won't be as matte. So we'll see how that performs. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the application on this side of the face. I'm just taking this Real Techniques Expert Face Brush, and I'm just gonna dip that into the product and buff that into the skin and see how that works. So here's the foundation with both sides applied now. So as far as the finish, both sides have a very similar finish. There's not really a difference in how a brush applies versus the included sponge. The outcome is very much the same. What is different is how long it takes to apply, how easy it is to apply the foundation with a brush compared to the sponge. I find that it is a little bit easier to apply with the brush. I feel like I got fuller coverage a lot quicker applying with that method versus buffing it in with the sponge. But I do have to say there is one caveat. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, but if you can see here on my foundation, I do have a lot of kickback. I wasn't getting that when I was applying with the sponge, but when you go in with the brush and dip it in, it does have a lot of kickback, and that is to be expected. They are very finely milled powders, and that is why it applies so smoothly and blends out seamlessly with the rest of the skin. But when you're picking up some of the product with the brush, you just got to be careful not to be too aggressive doing it, because you can inadvertently create a lot of kickback, and that will waste a lot of product. But overall, the application looks fine either way you choose to apply. Again, as far as the coverage, did a pretty good job of covering up everything. It really excels in neutralizing redness. Where it does fall a tiny bit short is neutralizing the purple tones. I do have a couple spots here that are peeking through, and it's more so the more like purplish type of post-acne marks rather than, you know, red, active, inflamed acne. Not that I had any serious problems going on, but I did have a few trouble areas that are a little active right now, and those spots were covered up fine. The redness is completely neutralized. One thing that I am surprised about by this formula that I thought would be an issue, talking about active breakouts and spots like that I have, a lot of times complexion products tend to kind of gather and collect on some like recently active acne spots, some healing spots. I don't see this foundation clinging to or holding on to any texture spots or anywhere where I recently had breakouts. It just applies nice and evenly and smooth throughout the entire skin. I was really afraid, especially with this spot right here, because this is a recently active breakout, that was going to really cling to that spot and really emphasize that being a powder, but it actually performed pretty pretty well as far as covering it up without emphasizing the texture. So I appreciate that a lot. Fenty does an amazing job with their powder formulas. When I saw that they were dropping this, I was really excited to try it out, and I'm glad I splurged on it because the product really lived up to the Fenty name and the Fenty hype that all their products tend to have. I do feel like I look a little bit flat, a little washed out, a little bit one-dimensional. So I do want to add a little bit of warmth and some color and some definition back to my skin. So I'm just going to go ahead and bronze up my complexion a little bit with this Fenty Beauty Stalk'r bronzer. This is in the shade Island Ting. So this is their powder bronzer formula, perfect to complement the powder foundation. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this to bronze up my skin a little bit. I've gone ahead and bronzed and sculpted my face. So all I'm wearing on my face complexion wise is just the powder foundation and then the powder bronzer on top. Even though I'm just wearing powder on powder, it looks really smooth and seamless. It looks just like my skin. It's not powdery or anything like that. Like I said, it's still not collecting on any of my healing or active breakouts, which some liquid foundations tend to do. It just looks nice and smooth and skin-like. It's blurred out all my pores. Everything just looks nice and snatched right up. It looks just like my skin, even though it's a powder. And the application of the bronzer didn't lift any of the foundation underneath. Everything's still intact. I still have the same coverage I had before I applied the bronzer, so that's nice as well that it doesn't lift when you apply product on top. I'm just gonna go ahead and complete the look by fixing up my brows a little bit and then go ahead and start the wear test. Alright, so that's the completed look. Nothing too crazy, just some foundation, bronzer, and some brow gel to keep everything in place. So the current time is 11 a.m. I have a decently full schedule. I have to run some errands today, and I'm going to be doing stuff just around the house, cleaning up and whatnot. So I'm going to wear it throughout the day, do what I got to do, and then I'll check back later this evening and see how it held up throughout the day and give my final thoughts on whether I recommend this product or not. So I'll see y'all in a little bit. So I wanted to do a midday check-in. I just wanted to show y'all how the foundation's looking after I ran my errands, how things are holding up so far, and I also wanted to get in a little check-in before the sunset so y'all could get an idea of what the foundation looks like in a more natural light setting. So please excuse the lighting, it's a little weird. I didn't want to sit like in the direct sunlight because I feel like that washes me out, but I am sitting as close to the window as possible so that you can see what this looks like in a more natural setting. So right now my lighting is just the sunlight. This is what everything's looking like. 2.5 hours later, it is still holding up really well. It isn't completely matte like when I first applied it, but I feel like the sunlight's kind of playing that up a little bit. It's coming across a little bit more dewy on camera than it looks in real life. It is still fairly matte, but it's not like completely matte like when I first applied it. It's not drying at all or anything like that. Still feels nice and comfortable on the face, and as you can see, it still looks really good on the face, really smooth. My pores are nice and blurred out and whatnot. My normal trouble areas where I usually tend to crease up, so here in my smile lines and under here in the under eye areas are looking good. It's not gathering or creasing in those areas. And as well, another issue that I have had in the under eye area, like with setting powders and stuff, is creping. If y'all know what I'm talking about, it looks really nice and smooth. It hasn't creped up at all, so I'm happy about that. The only area where I did have a little bit of an issue is up in here. I do have a little bit of a crease. That's just from me squinting while I was driving in the sun. That just naturally happens. I'm not sure though if that's the foundation itself creasing or if it's my skin. I'll see later tonight when I do my final check-in, because if it's my skin, it'll smooth out by then. Also, I was running some errands, so I did have to wear a mask, but as you can see, it still looks pretty much the exact same way as it did when I applied it. I didn't really have a problem with transferring or anything like that. I mean, it did look like there was a little bit of product came off onto the mask, but it wasn't a huge deal. And as you can see here, I haven't touched up or anything. You can't see any lines from where I was wearing the mask or anything like that. It hasn't rubbed off at all. So far, so good. It's holding up really well. 2.5 hours in. I'll do a final check-in later tonight and show y'all how it looks at the end of the day, and I'll give my final thoughts on whether or not I still recommend the product after a full day's wear. But so far I'm impressed and I really like what I see so far, so excited to do my final check-in later tonight. Hey y'all, I'm back to do my final check-in of the day. I'm ready to give my final thoughts on the product, whether I like it or not, and still recommend it. It's been a relatively long day. I had quite a bit to do today, and I'm just ready to wash this all off. I'm just gonna go ahead and wrap it up and give y'all my final thoughts on everything. So time check, it's about to be 6 o'clock. So we applied this at 11 o'clock. It's been about 7 hours. So this is what we're looking like 7 hours later. Looking here in the mirror, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I don't really see a huge difference from how it looked 7 hours ago. The biggest difference really, and you can probably notice it on the camera, is obviously, you know, 7 hours later, my oils have started to peek through. So it is looking relatively dewy right now. Now, of course, just like with earlier with the sun, I feel like my lighting here, my studio lights are emphasizing the shine a little bit more than it is in real life. I feel like it is more of like a satiny finish right now. It just looks nice and skin-like and really natural. It's not leaning too far in the dewy or matte direction right now. As far as how the product is holding up on the face, I do see that my pores are starting to come through a little bit in here in my T-zone, the areas where I tend to get the most oily. But for the most part, like my forehead, up in the temple area, it's not so much in here in the middle, but the perimeters of the cheeks, the chin, and the neck, all that is still nice and blurred out. The formula is looking pretty much the exact same way it was looking when I first applied it. And even though I am starting to see some of my pores peeking through, I don't really see the product breaking up at all or anything like that. My smile lines aren't really coming through. My forehead isn't really coming through. And the furrow I had in here in between my brows, that line I had earlier, actually went away. So that was just my skin. That wasn't the foundation. This foundation actually doesn't really seem to budge once you apply it. Now, obviously it does claim to be like crease resistant, sweat resistant, all that. So I did expect it to hold up pretty well. But a lot of foundations make claims like that. And even foundations that make claims like that and claim to be long wearing and stuff like that, they do tend to start to break down a little bit around this time, especially after a full day of wear when you've actually been doing stuff. But I'm actually really impressed with how this has held up. It hasn't faded at all. It didn't really come off earlier when I was running errands when I was wearing a mask. It hasn't creased at all on my skin, but it's not emphasizing any texture or anything like that I have going on in the skin. I'm really impressed with my experience with this foundation. This is my first time ever using a powder foundation. I think this will be my new go-to complexion product when I need something to wear for like an all-over product, not just to spot conceal. So that concludes this review, this wear test, this first impressions. My final verdict is I started off loving this product and I love it even more now that I've seen how it wears throughout the day. This foundation probably has the best longevity of any formula I've ever tried before, and I really didn't know what to expect because all I've really dabbled with in the past is liquid and cream formulas when it comes to complexion products, but I'm really impressed with how this performs. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, you enjoyed this review. If you did, be sure to go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and leave a comment down below letting me know what you liked about this video, what you disliked. Let me know what kind of videos y'all want to see in the future so I can keep that in mind when I'm sitting down thinking of video ideas to film. Like I said, if you haven't already, just be sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell button as well so you get a notification every time I upload a new video. And with that being said, I should be back shortly with new content. Bye.